There are synthesizers, and then there are synthesizers. Today, you're joining us as we plunge into the deep end with a true legend from the 1980s, the Oberheim Xpander.
Oh, yeah. An absolute monster of a synth.
It really is. Just looking at that front panel, you can tell there's immense potential locked away inside.
It is indeed a beast. And for this deep dive, we're going straight to the source, the Xpander's owner's manual. Consider this your insider's guide to unlocking its secrets.
Exactly. Our mission today, really, is to give you a shortcut to understanding the core concepts that make the Xpander so powerful and, well, incredibly flexible.
And we'll be looking at how it blends that analog warmth with digital control.
Which was pretty cutting edge back then.
Yeah.
A hallmark of its era.
And a fusion that allowed for sonic architecture previously, well, unimaginable. We'll see how this combination pushed the boundaries of what a synthesizer could do.
Absolutely. We're going to dissect its voice architecture, the very building blocks of its sound.
Get right into the nuts and bolts.
We'll unravel the seemingly limitless possibilities of its modulation matrix.
Yeah.
I mean, how you can create sounds that breathe, morph, and surprise.
That matrix is something else.
And kind of a fun look back. We'll even touch on how you painstakingly saved your sonic masterpieces using, well, a cassette tape interface.
Yeah. Yes, a true relic of the past. So let's get started. Imagine you've just unboxed this incredible instrument. What's the very first step to making some noise?
Okay, let's unpack this. The manual starts with what they aptly call taming the beast, beginning with power.
Makes sense. Got to get it turned on first.
Right, and the Xpander is quite accommodating. With voltage, it handles like 100, 130, or 200, 260 volts AC.
Okay, so pretty globally compatible then.
Yeah, just a quick check of the voltage selector on the back panel. It's right next to the power socket. Flip the switch, and hopefully see that power light come on.
A little illumination is always a good sign. And once you have power, how do you get that sound, out to your setup?
Precisely. The Xpander offers both stereo and mono outputs on the back, ready to connect to your mixing board or sound system.
Standard outputs? Good.
Yeah, and the manual mentions both individual voice outputs and mixed outputs, which is interesting. We'll definitely revisit that when we talk about crafting richer sounds with multi-patches later on.
Right. Good point. And it's not just about getting sound out. How do you actually control this sonic powerhouse?
Great question. The Xpander provides a pretty comprehensive set of control options. It features MIDI in, out, and through ports.
Standard MIDI trio.
And right out of the gate, when you first turn it on, it's set to receive MIDI on all 16 channels. So you can just plug in your MIDI controller and start exploring.
Very practical, even for today's studios. But what about integrating with older analog gear? CV gate and all that.
Yeah, for those who appreciate that hands-on voltage control, the Xpander doesn't disappoint. It boasts 6 pairs of CD gate inputs on the back.
6 pairs, wow.
Yeah, that opens up a world of possibilities for connecting with vintage analog sequencers and, other control voltage sources.
It really reflects a design philosophy that bridged different eras of synthesis, doesn't it? Analog heart, MIDI brain.
Exactly. Now, once you've got it powered and connected, you're faced with that impressive front panel. It might seem a bit daunting at first glance.
You're not wrong. Lots of buttons, knobs.
But the manual does a solid job of breaking it down into manageable sections. It highlights 5 key areas: master, programmer, modulation source select, page modifier, and single multi-patch select.
Okay, 5 main zones. And that page modifier section seems crucial for navigating the Xpander's depth capabilities, right?
Absolutely. The controls in the page modifier section are your gateway. They let you access different pages of parameters for editing with the knobs.
So the knobs change function depending on the page.
Exactly. It's an ingenious way to provide a vast amount of control without needing, hundreds of physical knobs. The LEDs next to those page buttons are your guide, showing you exactly what each knob is currently controlling.
Smart design. So what are the primary pages you'll be using most often?
Well, the manual emphasizes the single patch page. That's where you sculpt individual sounds, the fundamental elements.
Your basic sound design happens there.
Right. Then there's the multi-patch page, which lets you orchestrate all 6 of the Xpander's voices together. Think of it as your conductor's podium for creating layered and textured performances.
Ah, okay. Single patch for the ingredients, multi-patch for the recipe. Makes sense. What about the other pages mentioned?
Beyond those 2 main ones, you have the tune page, essential for keeping everything in pitch, and it even handles internal calibration stuff.
Important for analog gear.
Definitely. The master page gives you access to overall system settings, global parameters, and then there are the modulation pages, which are really the heart of the Xpander's sonic flexibility. That's where you route modulation sources to various parameters. We'll get deeper into that soon.
It's a layered architecture then. Select a page, and the physical knobs come to life with new functions. What about the knobs and buttons themselves? Any operational quirks?
The manual points out that generally the knobs control values ranging from 0 to 63. It's a digital representation of an analog style control.
64 steps of resolution. Okay.
And any on-off switch on the panel is actually underlined when it's active, which provides a nice, clear visual indication. Simple, but helpful.
Okay, so you're navigating these pages, tweaking knobs. Now let's delve into the core of the Xpander. How do you actually create sounds? What's happening under the hood?
Here's where it gets really interesting. The manual explains that the Xpander's voice is cleverly split into hardware and software components.
Hardware and software in the 80s.
Yeah, the hardware gives you the analog building blocks, the voltage-controlled oscillators, VCOs, the voltage-controlled filter, VCF, and the voltage-controlled amplifiers, VCAs. These are your raw sound sources and shapers, pure analog goodness.
But the software side is what unlocks the Xpander's true potential for sonic complexity, right? That digital control layer.
Precisely. The software manages the low-frequency oscillators, LFOs, the envelope generators, the tracking generators, the ramps, and even the interpretation of incoming MIDI data. This digital layer allows for incredibly intricate modulation routings that would be, well, virtually impossible with purely analog circuits back then.
So the analog components provide the fundamental sonic character, that Oberheim sound, and the digital brain orchestrates how they interact and evolve.
Very clever. Now, you mentioned those single-patch pages. How are they organized for sound design?
Okay, so there are 9 single-patch pages in total. You access them via the buttons on the right side of the front panel, and an LED tells you which page you're on.
9 pages just for one sound. Okay, yeah, it's deep. The manual then walks through each of these pages. Let's start at the beginning with the sound generators, VCO1 and VCO2.
The oscillator is the foundation of any synthesized sound. What controls do you have on the first VCO page? What are we looking at there?
The first page for each VCO offers the essentials. Frequency, obviously, for setting the bass pitch. Detune, to slightly offset the two oscillators for that richer, fatter tone.
Classic detuning trick.
Exactly. Pulse width, which sculpts the harmonic content of the pulse waveform. And volume, just to set the initial level of that oscillator before it hits the filter.
Basic, but crucial. And the second VCO page. That unlocks more sonic possibilities with modulation and waveform choices.
You got it. Page 2 lets you select modulation sources for the oscillator's pitch. Things like key follow, where the pitch tracks the keyboard.
Standard key tracking.
Lag for smooth portamento or glide effects between notes. Level 1, which the manual says is typically tied to MIDI pitch bend, and vibrato.
Okay, modulation sources for pitch and the waveforms.
Crucially, this is also where you select the actual waveforms. Yeah. The classic triangle, sawtooth, pulse, and noise. Gives you a versatile starting palette.
Good selection of analog staples. From the oscillators, the sound then typically moves to the filter and amplifier, right? The VCF VCA section. What are the key controls on those pages?
Right, the VCF VCA section also has 2 pages. Page 1 gives you control over the filter frequency or cutoff.
The most important filter control, arguably.
Totally. Resonance, which emphasizes frequencies around the cutoff, and this can go from subtle peaks right up to screaming self-oscillation.
Love that Oberheim filter resonance.
Oh, yeah. Then the filter mode, determining the type of filtering, low pass, high pass, etc., and the initial output levels for VCA1 and VCA2.
Wait, VCA1 and VCA2? 2 amplifiers per voice. That's unusual.
It is. That's an intriguing design choice. What does having dual VCAs allow you to do sonically?
Well, the manual hints that this is a key element of the Xpander's unique sonic character. It allows for more intricate amplitude shaping.
How so?
Imagine the 2 VCAs being independently modulated. You could create sounds with really complex dynamic attack and decay characteristics, or even sort of rhythmic pulsing effects within a single note.
Ah, I see. Like one VCA handles the initial attack, the other shapes the sustain or release differently.
Exactly. Imagine a sound that swells in, then has a sharply decaying tail. The dual VCAs facilitate that kind of detailed amplitude control. It adds another layer of dynamic possibility.
Okay, that's cool. And what about the second VCF VCA page?
Page 2 is all about modulation and the variety of filter modes. You can select modulation sources for the filter cutoff again, Key follow, lag, level 1, like pitch bend, and vibrato are options here too.
So you can modulate the filter cutoff in various ways.
Right. And then you get to the filter modes themselves. The Xpander offers a really impressive selection. Low pass, high pass, band pass, notch, and even phase filters.
Phase filter, interesting.
Yeah. And these come in various player configurations like 1-pole, 2-pole, 3-pole, 4-pole, even combinations.
Okay, for those listening who might not be deep into filter poles, can you briefly explain what that means sonically? What's the difference between, say, a 2-pole and a 4-pole low pass?
Sure. Think of it like the steepness of a slope. The number of poles determines how sharply the filter rolls off frequencies above or below the cutoff point. A 4-pole low-pass filter cuts high frequencies much more drastically, more steeply than a gentler 2-pole filter.
So warpole gives you a more pronounced filtering effect, maybe sounds darker, faster as you lower the cutoff?
Exactly. It leads to a more obvious warming effect, a smoother roll-off. A 2-pole might sound a bit brighter or buzzier. Having multiple options like 1, 2, 3, and 4-pole, plus different filter types like bandpass and notch, it gives you incredible fine-grained control over the filter's character.
It sounds incredibly versatile just for shaping the tonal color. What other essential single-patch pages should we explore? There are 9, you said.
Right. After the VCF VCA, you'll find the FML lag page. We mentioned lag already. That's your portamento or glide. The manual details different lag modes, linear, expolinear, and equal time, each offering a slightly different feel to the glide.
Okay, different glide characteristics. What about FM?
That page also lets you set up frequency modulation between the two VCOs or even use noise or the filter output as an FM source. Adds another layer for creating complex, often bell-like or metallic tones.
Got it. Then we have the envelopes, ENVX, the manual calls them. 5 per voice.
5 envelope generators per voice, yeah. Page 1 provides the standard ADSR controls we all know. Delay, attack, decay, sustain, release. Plus an overall amplitude control for the envelope's depth.
Standard ADSR. Good. But the second page of the envelopes offers more unusual triggering and behavior options, doesn't it? That sounds interesting.
Exactly. Page 2 offers various modes that determine how the envelope is triggered and how it behaves over time. You get modes like reset, standard, free run, single one-shot, external trigger using the CV inputs, LFO trigger, vibrato trigger, and gated.
Whoa, okay. What does something like free run do?
Free-run envelopes just cycle continuously, like an LFO, creating rhythmic modulations even if you're not playing a note. And single mode makes it act like a one-shot modulator. These options open up a lot of creative possibilities beyond just shaping the note's volume or filter over time.
So you can have envelopes acting almost like complex LFOs.
Pretty much. The manual even mentions creating very long, evolving sounds by setting really extended times for the various stages, seconds, even minutes for decay or release.
That's the kind of detail that allows for truly unique and evolving textures.
Oh.
Awesome. What about the LFOs, low-frequency oscillators?
The Xpander boasts 5 LFOs per voice. Again, 5. These are your go-to for adding movement, vibrato, filter sweeps, pulse width modulation, all that stuff.
5 LFOs too. Okay, what controls do you get?
Controls include speed, obviously, waveform, and it's a versatile selection including triangle, saw up, saw down, square, random, noise, and sample and hold.
Good range of LFO shapes.
Retrig, which lets you choose if the LFO restarts its cycle with each new note or runs freely, and amplitude, controlling the LFO's depth.
And like the envelopes, can these LFOs go really slow?
They sure can. Similar to the envelopes, the LFO speed can go down to incredibly low rates, allowing for very slow, sweeping modulations that can subtly shift the character of a sound over long periods. Think evolving paths.
Nice. And beyond these standard modulators, envelopes, and LFOs, the Xpander has some more unique tools for shaping sound, like the tracking generators and ramps, right? What are those about?
Absolutely. These add even more depth. There are 3 tracking generators per voice. Think of these as sophisticated key scaling tools.
More than just simple key follows.
Yeah. They allow you to map a control source, typically the keyboard pitch, but could be velocity or something else to a parameter in a more complex way. You can program up to 5 distinct points, like breakpoints, along the keyboard range and define how the parameter value changes between those points.
Ah, so you could make a filter open up only in the highest octave or make the sound brighter just in the middle of the keyboard.
Exactly that kind of thing. They can even operate in positive only or positive negative modes, offering a great deal of detailed articulation across the keyboard or velocity range.
Very cool for nuanced control. And the ramps.
Then you have 4 ramps per voice. Think of these as simpler single-stage envelopes, almost like a basic attack or decay. They have a rate control that can extend up to 30 seconds.
30 seconds.
Yeah. providing another way to create slowly evolving textures or delayed parameter changes. Maybe a slow-pitch drift starts after a few seconds.
Okay, another tool for movement. And finally, there's a MISC page.
And finally, there's a MISC page for the essential task of naming your patches. Got to keep track of your creations.
Uh-huh, definitely essential. It sounds like an incredibly deep and programmable instrument, even within just a single voice structure.
It really is. But the true power, I imagine, lies in how all these components, VCOs, VCF, VCAs, envelopes, LFOs, trackers, ramps, can be interconnected through its extensive modulation system.
You've nailed it. The modulation pages are where you access the modulation matrix, and the manual emphasizes its immense flexibility. This is where the Xpander truly shines.
So how does it work? What can you modulate with what?
Basically, you can select from a vast array of possible modulation sources. The manual lists things like the levers, pitch bend, and the dedicated vibrato lever, pedals connected to the back, keyboard velocity and release velocity, pressure, that's aftertouch,
Okay, performance controllers.
and then all the internal stuff, the 5 envelopes, the 5 LFOs, the 3 tracking generators, and the 4 ramps we've just discussed, all per voice.
That's a lot of sources, and you can then route these sources to practically any parameter as a destination. Like LFO3 controls filter resonance.
Precisely. You choose your modulation source, say LFO3, then you select a destination parameter on pretty much any of the other pages, VCO1 frequency, filter resonance, VCA2 level, envelope 1 attack time. Almost anything goes.
Wow.
Then you just set the modulation amount, positive or negative, to determine the intensity and direction of the effect.
And how many of these connections can you make simultaneously within one patch?
Get this. The manual highlights that you can have up to 20 simultaneous modulations per voice.
20 per voice.
20. That's an astonishing level of interconnectivity and complexity. You can really build sounds that evolve and react in incredibly intricate ways.
It almost sounds overwhelming in its potential. I mean, keeping track of 20 modulations.
It can be, but I can certainly see how that leads to the Xpander's reputation for crafting incredibly intricate, dynamic, and often unexpected sounds. Now that covers the single patch architecture. Let's move on to those multi-patches you mentioned. How do you begin to layer these individual voices into richer sonic textures?
Right, because the Xpander isn't just one sound at a time. It's 6 individual synthesizers, essentially.
Exactly. The multi-patch pages are where you bring all 6 of the Xpander's independent voices, each running its own single patch program, together. You access them by hitting the multi-patch button.
Okay, so now we're controlling all 6 voices globally.
Sort of. You have global controls, but also per voice settings within the multi-patch context. The first page you'll likely encounter is the volume page.
Makes sense. A mixer.
Yep, acts as a straightforward mixer for the 6 voices, allowing you to set the individual level of each single patch sound within the overall multi-patch layer.
Crucial tool for creating balanced and dynamic multi-timbral sounds, or just thick layers. What other parameters can you control on a global or per voice level within a multi-patch?
Next up is pan, which controls the stereo placement of each of the 6 voices.
Ah, so you can spread your layered sounds across the stereo field.
Precisely. And interestingly, the manual points out again that individual voices can be routed to their own dedicated outputs on the back panel or to the main combined stereo or mono output.
Oh, right. So you could send, say, your bass sound out one output for separate processing, and the pad sounds out the main stereo mix.
Exactly. That gives you significant flexibility in mixing and processing, both within the Xpander and externally.
Yeah.
Very powerful.
Definitely. What else?
Then there's transpose. This lets you shift the pitch of each of the 6 voices individually, or altogether, by up to 2 octaves up or down in semitone steps.
Okay, so great for creating octave layers, chord voicings, cross voices, or just quick key changes for the whole multi-patch.
Or thick, detuned unison sounds by slightly transposing voices against each other.
Nice. And is there a dedicated LFO for adding overall vibrato and tremolo effects across all 6 voices at once? Sometimes you want global modulation.
Yes, there is. The VIB page provides a single global LFO that can be applied to all 6 voices for vibrato, tremolo, or other similar modulations that affect the overall timbre or pitch of the multi-patch.
Handy for adding a sense of unified movement.
It is. You get controls for speed, waveform, and amplitude on the first VIB page. And then a second page offers more advanced options like adding lag, a delay to the vibrato onset, and the ability to control the vibrato speed and amplitude using an external pedal or maybe the mod wheel.
That's incredibly useful for adding expressiveness and cohesion to a multi-layered sound. Now, how do you manage external control sources, MIDI channels, CV inputs when you're working with multi-patches. You've got 6 voices to assign.
Right, that's handled on the CV MIDI page. For each of the 6 individual voices within the multi-patch, you can assign it to respond to a specific CV input pair, remember those 6 pairs on the back, or a particular MIDI channel from 1 to 16.
Ah, okay. So this is essential for creating truly multi-timbral setups. You could have voice 1 playing a bass line on MIDI channel 1, voices 2 and 3 playing chords on channel 2, and maybe voice 4 triggered by an external sequencer via CV gate.
Precisely that kind of setup. Or have different controllers triggering different layers of your sound.
That's key for integrating the expander into a larger studio environment, controlling it from a master keyboard or sequencer. And the zones page sounds particularly powerful for creative keyboard and MIDI assignments across those 6 voices. What does that let you do?
Absolutely. The zones page is where you define specific keyboard ranges and MIDI channel assignments for each of the 6 voices. This unlocks all sorts of possibilities.
Like keyboard splits.
Exactly. You could have a bass sound on the lower octaves, assigned to voice 1, say, and a lead sound on the upper octaves, voice 2, both played from one keyboard on the same MIDI channel.
Or layered sounds.
Yep, doubles or triples, where multiple voices play the same notes, perhaps slightly detuned or using different patches for added thickness. You can assign multiple voices to the same keyboard zone and MIDI channel. You could even have velocity switching, where different voices respond to different velocity ranges.
So you could have a soft sound on voices 1, 2, and a louder, brighter sound on voices 3, 4 that only comes in when you play hard.
Yeah, that's the idea. It's a fantastic way to build intricate, dynamic sonic textures playable from a single performance. And just like with single patches, there's a MISC page for naming your multi-patches.
It really paints a picture of a remarkably sophisticated and adaptable instrument, both for single sounds and complex layers. Now, let's talk about preserving all these intricate sonic creations. Back in the 80s, no USB drives, no SD cards. How did you save and load your patches on the Xpander?
Yes. We're entering the slightly less glamorous, nostalgic realm of cassette tapes.
The humble audio cassette.
Indeed. The Xpander features a dedicated cassette interface for storing and recalling patch data. You'd actually need to connect 2 standard cassette recorders to the input and output jacks on the back panel.
2 recorders. Not just 1. Why the need for 2?
Well, the manual outlines a process where one recorder is primarily used to receive the audio data signal being outputted from the Xpander's tape-out jack.
Okay, sending the modem like squeal out.
Right. And the other recorder is connected to the tape-in jack, typically used for verifying the recording immediately after saving. It's a slightly involved procedure.
Sounds like it. How did you actually start the save process?
You access the cassette interface functions through the master page and the clearly labeled cassette button. To save your patches, you'd press the AIcast button.
Okay.
Then, critically, you had to carefully adjust the recording levels on your tape recorder. The manual stresses getting a strong, clean signal, not too quiet, not distorted. Then you'd simultaneously press record and play on the recorder itself.
Hit record and play. Okay.
The Xpander would then send the data out as that screechy audio signal. Its display would hopefully reassure you with a data complete message after about 2 fairly tense minutes.
2 minutes of holding your breath. And then you had to keep your fingers crossed that the tape player wouldn't mangle your precious sonic masterpieces the next time you tried to load them. How did you verify that the save was actually successful?
Well, the Xpander had a check it function for that very reason, using that second tape connection. You'd press the check cast button, rewind the tape you just recorded, and then play it back into the Xpander's tape in.
Okay, like a read after write verification.
Exactly. The Xpander would then attempt to read the data back and compare it to what was still in its memory. It would let you know if it matched, displaying data complete again, or, more alarmingly, some kind of error message if the tape wasn't good.
Nerve-wracking. And loading sounds back into the Xpander. From a previously saved tape, that must have been an equally elaborate process.
Indeed. Similar setup. You'd connect your tape player's output to the Xpander's tape in, then you'd press the From Tape button on the Xpander, adjust playback levels, and hit play on your cassette player.
And hope for the best.
Pretty much. The Xpander offered various loading options. One for loading just a single patch into the current buffer, single to load all 100 single patches from the tape, multi-eye for all 100 multi-patches, chain for loading program chain data, global for the system-wide settings, and all for, well, absolutely everything stored on that tape.
Lots of options, but still reliant on that physical tape working perfectly. And I imagine things didn't always go according to plan. The manual likely mentions some common pitfalls or error messages.
Oh, it does. You might encounter messages like cassette speed too slow or cassette speed too fast, indicating issues with the playback speed consistency of your tape deck, a common problem.
Azimuth errors, tape stretching.
Right. You could also get things like error in single patch data or error in multi-patch data, meaning the expander detected corruption in the recorded information, maybe due to a dropout on the tape or incorrect levels. It was a true test of patience and meticulousness.
A stark contrast to clicking Save As instantly today, but it certainly adds to the expander's vintage mystique and makes you appreciate modern storage. Now, before we conclude our deep dive, the manual briefly touches on some fundamental synthesis concepts relevant to the expander itself.
Yes, towards the end, it includes a little section on synesthesia, which is a nice touch. It explains that the expander primarily utilizes subtractive synthesis,
The classic method.
right, which is the core technique of starting with harmonically rich waveforms from the oscillator's saw, pulse, and then using the filter to sculpt the sound by removing or subtracting unwanted frequencies, thereby shaping the timbre.
Start rich, then carve away. And it also makes mention of FM synthesis, didn't you say?
It does, yeah. It acknowledges that frequency modulation, FM, is another synthesis technique available on the expander. That's where one oscillator's output modulates the frequency, the pitch, of another oscillator.
Which can create much more complex and often harmonically rich or metallic bell-like timbres, very different from subtractive.
Exactly. While the manual doesn't go into great depth on its FM capabilities in this particular section, it's important to note that this whole other sonic territory is also accessible on the expander, adding to its versatility.
So, a versatile sonic palette encompassing both the warmth and familiarity of analog subtractive synthesis and the complexity and bite of FM.
Nice.
The manual also offers some initial guidance on how to actually start designing your own sounds, doesn't it? Like where to begin.
Absolutely. It gives some practical starting points. It suggests starting with a basic initialized sound. It even refers to an Oberheim patch, which was likely a default starting point, probably a simple saw wave or something.
A blank canvas, sort of.
Right. And then it encourages you to simply experiment with tweaking the various parameters we've talked about. It specifically recommends playing with the filter frequency and resonance first, just to hear how they fundamentally shape the tone.
Good advice. Filter is key.
Then experimenting with the attack and decay times of the envelopes to alter the dynamic feel, make it punchy or slow and swelling, and using the LFOs to introduce movement, vibrato, filter sweeps, that kind of thing.
Basic modulation.
It also specifically suggests exploring pulse width modulation, modulating the width of the pulse wave with an LFO or envelope as a classic way to add animation and character to pulse-based sounds.
Excellent practical advice for anyone, even today, who might be lucky enough to sit down in front of an expander or even a similar synth and wants to begin exploring its sonic depth. Just start turning knobs.
Okay, let's bring this deep dive to a close then. As we've explored through its owner's manual, the Oberheim Xpander is, well, a genuinely powerful and intricate synthesizer from its time. No doubt about it.
Its architecture, boasting those 6 independent voices, each a full synth on its own, and that incredibly flexible modulation matrix. It really provides an expansive sonic canvas.
And the cassette storage. Well, it's a tangible reminder of technological evolution, isn't it?
Yeah.
Makes you appreciate where we are now.
It certainly is. The expander beautifully embodies that fascinating intersection of rich, organic, analog sound generation, that unmistakable Oberheim filter sound with the precision and intricate routing possibilities offered by sophisticated digital control.
It was a bridge between worlds, really.
It was. And it leaves you, our listener, with perhaps an intriguing thought to ponder. Even in today's world, which is so dominated by software synthesizers offering seemingly limitless digital modulation possibilities right there on screen, what is the enduring value, if any, of the design philosophies found in instruments like the expander?
Like the hands-on aspect.
Exactly. With their dedicated, sometimes complex, hands-on interfaces and those deeply interconnected parameters that you discover through physical interaction, how does the physical act of sculpting sound on a dedicated hardware instrument, one with such a vast integrated sonic palette, continue to influence the creative process in ways that clicking a mouse in software might not fully replicate?
Tactile connection.
Yeah. Is there something lost or perhaps just different when we move away from that physical engagement? It's definitely a question worth considering as you embark on your own sonic explorations, whatever tools you use.